For me, I embrace and love the fact that people are embracing their African ancestry. We know you black, you Latino. Stop lying. Right? We seen your mother. But people can be black Dominicans, and because their birth certificate says they're white, you'll hear them talk about black people. And I'm sitting there going, "Well, you blacker than the people down there. You blacker."
All right, what's up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of Sankofa Sessions. I am your host, Kofi Anand, along with my co-host,
Kofi D. We're here for another week in the merry month of, I'm gonna just say winter. Let's not date this. Let's just say winter. What's going on, my brother?
It's cold. Yeah, man. I'm good, man. How about yourself?
I'm great. We're here in wonderful company today as well. Right?
Yes, sir. Hope so.
Yeah, we're here with wonderful company. But before we get to our guest, Kofi, I know you got things you got to say, man.
Before we get started, just want to make sure we shout out our sponsors, Resist Booksellers here in Petersburg.
Woo woo!
Yes, sir. And of course, Modern Man Photography for providing all this beautiful images and light and sound and everything we got going on over here.
Don't we look better now because we got professional photography?
Yeah, we used to have them little LED lights.
I mean, I'm just saying, they say when you look good, you feel good, and I feel like we feel amazing. So, I mean, thank you.
Feel good, you talk good?
Maybe.
We'll see.
Yeah, we're not gonna go off any tangents. Like, the goal of this podcast is not to go off on any tangents because we got a guest here that's full of information, and he's definitely going to enlighten us on a perspective that I think we felt that is not as served, especially with being Black History Month. I said I didn't want to date this, but it is Black History Month. But as we know, the Black history, especially in this country, is like a wide range of so many people, topics, and just it's not one thing, it's a thread of many things. And today we're going to be talking about our brothers and sisters, our Afro-Latino brothers and sisters. So please make sure you like and subscribe to this episode. So Kofi, you want to introduce our guest?
All right, so our guest today is Edalio Galarza, a man of many talents. I was reading your bio. He's an entrepreneur. He's a musician. He's a ordained minister, educator. But so yeah, we're gonna be tapping into some of his different wide range of experiences. But he's also, for the purposes of this episode, a good friend of ours and an Afro-Latino who's born in Puerto Rico and has just had some experiences that I think were really valuable to the conversation of what does the African influence in Latin America, what has it done, what's been hidden, and how it continues to shape our world that we live in, not just in Latin America, but here in America as well. So very rich conversation. I think especially coming off of the Super Bowl, I think that's something that I think was
you
very
moving your hips.
Yeah, you know what? It was the best part of the Super Bowl because it sure definitely was a.
You didn't do a TikTok dance, did you?
No, I didn't get that bad, but yeah, no, I thought that was cool because Bad Bunny did his thing, but I think one of the things that was enlightening for me just doing my research and stuff like that is that a lot of the music influence from him was African. And so it made me kind of excited to have this conversation about just what the scope and range of the African influence is in Latin America. So, welcome.
Thank you, brothers. Thank you, brother Kofi. Brother Kofi.
Yeah, Deuce.
It's thank you for those accolades. As you know, that the first thing I responded to you was, I don't like accolades. And one of the reasons for that is because coming from my experience, coming from watching people, on the ground. I grew up on 110th Street in Central Park West in Harlem. I grew up with my junior high schools, Booker T. Washington Junior High School.
There's always a Booker T somewhere.
They were recruiting grounds for the people who were in a movement at that time. So we're talking about young lords. We're talking about Black Panthers coming to those schoolyards at our lunch breaks and presenting to us. And that's how the light got shown on me, because they were trying to recruit us to help each other, to hold each other up. It was never, ever, ever. And I went a little further than just sitting for the meetings. I became involved with friends who had friends in the movement. So I'm gonna keep it like that, which also happens to be one of Gil Noble's from Like It Is Show's best references. I know some people who got friends up there.
Okay. Edalio, could I ask you a question right quick? Right, you mentioned these groups that tend to be majority African American. They didn't see you as any different, did they?
Absolutely never.
Can you talk more about that? Like how we know? Can you talk more about, I guess, how you came to this country and kind of like your origin story of who you are, how you came to this country, and how did you like assimilate?
Assimilation never really worked for me. Because when you come somewhere, like I said, where you're dropped in an environment that's foreign to you, if you never saw cold and snow and dead trees, that can be traumatic, right? To children, to people generally. So at that point, you're not assimilating, you're in shock, you're in culture shock, right? Then the first experience immediately became a very traumatic and hurtful thing, in that you watched how people related to your parents because they had a language barrier.
And this is where?
In Harlem, New York.
Okay. So where's your family originally from for the guests and stuff?
My family, my father is from a place called Moca, M-O-C-A, Puerto Rico. I grew up in Moca with a tin roof house, with the chicken coop underneath.
So you heard all those raindrops. When the raindrops used to hit the ceiling.
Worse. You hear all them raindrops, and then the pot you put under the leak in the in the tin roof, and it leaks in the house. And your parents might one time or another actually shifted your bed to where the water would get you. That doesn't necessarily mean you were poor. It just meant you were a campesino. You lived in the camp. And so, hence, I walked barefooted, which was wonderful. I foraged for stuff. I helped my parents for stuff. I was entrusted, told I had to walk about 3-4 miles to the little town store, which is where the only place you could buy kerosene and little things, because after our wooden stove, we graduated to a kerosene stove. So needless to say, I was literally raised almost without the modern amenities that people take for granted today everywhere.
And this is from ages what to what?
So from the time I was born in 1953 to the time I left Puerto Rico, the second time that I could remember, I was 8.
Wow. So you got some real, like I said, memories of being actually in Puerto Rico.
Absolutely.
Wow.
We drank from a clear water pond where the water would come from the mountains and collect in a little thing. I would walk there. That wasn't too long. I could walk there in 10, 15 minutes, bring 1 or 2 gallons of drinking water home, right? They would collect rainwater in drums for the animals. So we weren't big farmers, but we did have a fully independent small farm. everything is natural. Tropical food, fruits, like I said, banana palms, you got avocado trees, you got lime trees right there outside your window. You got grapefruits, you got citrus everywhere. It's amazing. It's just a paradise.
So I mean, I think it's important and interesting the way you describe your early childhood, you know, growing up, because it sounds like it holds a dear place in your heart. Like you're not romanticizing it, but it is art. Is that a fair characterization?
It
like,
absolutely is.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, the reason I bring it up is because some people might look at that living situation and think, oh, that's poverty, or that's a hard life to live, you know, because you're not in some condo or with all the amenities and this, that, and the other. But because I can identify with that in a way, because I mean, growing up in Guyana,
absolutely.
you know, like I never, of course I was young, but I never longed for anything else, you know. Now I was a child, and you know, so maybe that there was some things going on that I couldn't really comprehend or I couldn't really put into context. Mm-hmm. But I never felt poor. I never felt like I needed anything, you know. So I definitely could identify with the way you're describing your early life.
It kind of also matures you a little, because and usually I find that to be true with people who were raised on farms or in similar environments. Whether in full modern amenities like tractor trailers or not. So landing here in the assimilation question that you put forth was more like a trauma than the memory that you just said. Deserves romanticizing. I recently wound up going back, and after many, many visits to Puerto Rico and not finding a lot of places that were in my spirit, I eventually began to accidentally and wind up in them anyway. So 4 years after having started to go to Puerto Rico to visit again, I found the place where I was raised. And I didn't know I was there, but we went to visit an old aunt of mine, right? That I didn't even know was alive anymore. And of course, it wasn't like it was when I was a kid. Now it's got modern houses, of course, roads, cars, not horses. Because my father did. He rode horses. He had a horse. I was trampled by a horse as a kid. One time I was knocked off of it. I was definitely afraid of horses. And as an adult, of all places, but Brooklyn, New York, I met some black cowboys in Queens. And later on, ironically, one of those cowboys became the president of an organization I worked for called the Osborne Association.
Oh, wow.
And he was my man. He owned the horse in Brooklyn.
Brooklyn. Yeah.
People don't believe that in New York City you have stables and people who ride horses.
I mean, New York City has everything, you know. If I could, Edalio, one thing you mentioned, so how did the neighborhood, right? Because you're coming to Brooklyn at what, 8 years old?
I came to New York City.
Okay, New York City, right? I know you mentioned Harlem and some other places, right? What was the reaction to even though New York is a very diverse city, what was the, I guess, reaction to you guys being Afro-Latino? Because that is, I won't say it's a forgotten demographic, but people don't know how to take it, because in one way, if you have no accent, people will just say, oh, he's black, right? But then you do have the Latino heritage. So I want to hear, like, what were some of, like, I guess, the experiences you had with people asking your heritage, especially when you were younger and growing up?
Something happens amongst young people. Children and young people respond different. Like he was saying, maybe there was things he was blessed not to know.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't identified as part of our existence and experience. And I can always stand by that firmly because I can never dream or think or imagine of a day that we didn't eat. Well, not only did we eat, we also fed people, anybody around, because that's part of the culture.
What was your favorite dish growing up?
I can't really think about a favorite dish. We ate from the earth mostly. So
Okay.
I would still say that probably ground food, yams, and all kinds of different things that I watched people pull from the dirt. And then when they put that bacalao on it, that salt codfish, you got a gourmet dinner. So I remember those things. It felt good to you. It felt good for you, right? Fresh onions, fresh everything, lime, lemon, breadfruit, right? Fish. Pork was very common because in the holidays, it's tradition amongst Puerto Ricans in Puerto Rico to roast a whole pig. And they're roasted in different ways. They're either roasted literally in coals underground, in an underground pit, which I understand is very popular and also used in many of the Caribbean islands. So kind of share across cultures, right? Or on a bar under firewood in a pit where they turn that stuff until that the wings, those ears crumble and crunch like a chicken wing.
Look at you. I'm not a pork guy, but you look, you over here. You have vivid memories.
I had to because I had to help my mother. Now my father's he's going to slaughter that pig. So they're gonna take that pig, they're gonna isolate him somewhere, and they're going to stab him in a jugular in one of his arteries in his neck. He's bleeding out, dying, and they're collecting blood. Why are they collecting the blood?
I don't know.
Because they're using every single part of that pig there is, including the guts, which I had to clean out. The guts have what in it? We know what it has.
Yeah, it has waste in it.
Right, so very common amongst, Southerners, Chileans. We know the history of how we were given the garbage, but we turned it into a gourmet meal, right?
So in Ghana, we call it black pudding.
Go ahead now, I knew that.
Okay.
Blood
What'd you
pudding.
call it? Blood pudding?
Yeah.
Okay.
Morcilla, we call it morcilla.
Yeah.
I haven't eaten morcilla in 40, 50 years because the minute that I made friends with some of the brothers in Harlem, they were already conscious. They were already exposed to brothers who were in the Nation of Islam. The Fruit of Islam, too. Right? And so pork was like, yeah, you can't eat that, baby. Start talking about that strychnine worm and stuff like that. I was 11 years old.
I was actually if you go to England, they eat it for breakfast. Well, like we stuff out with rice. They don't use rice. They just use straight blood. But I was surprised to see that, like part of their traditional English breakfast is blood pudding, and I wasn't sure if we got it from them or they got it from us.
It's probably the genesis of it is somewhere. I mean, I figure it would be.
I was actually curious as to the origins of blood pudding.
So going back to
we said we gonna have a very happy podcast today, and we're celebrating some things even during a time that is very trying for people. And as you said, the saddest thing for me is to hear you say the relevance of it coinciding this Black History beginning because we're given a designated a month with the football game. and the Bad Bunny, right? Piece. And it's just sickening to me to continue to hear the bastardization and the attacks on really Latin Americans and Latin communities all over the world. It's such a big population and community. Over 10 million people all over the world.
That's true.
Needed the therapeutic value that you mentioned of having Benito El Conejo Malo Bad Bunny do what he did.
Yeah.
It embraced so many people. And yet and still, right now, all you could hear from the opposition is everything they're not. To the point where in their ignorance, they forgot that he's American, that Puerto Rico is America.
That is one of the things that irks my nerves. I mean, I'm like, come on now. If you took a 6th grade civic class, we already know how Puerto Rico became a territory of America. I mean, you can take a 101 class on the Spanish-American War and understand how it actually came, into America's coffers. That is, so I guess you didn't watch the Turning Point USA halftime show.
I missed it.
You missed it?
I missed it.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go back to, because I know he's playing devil's advocate. He's asking the corner by playing passive, saying, I wonder who got the pudding first, England or, mine. Well, gentlemen, I said I got to keep it good. And only because one of the best things, the second best thing that could have happened for me in my spirit recently was the Buddhist Walk for Peace monks. Somebody who decided to show people what true commitment and true will is and true mindfulness.
Yeah, because it was cold as hell outside.
To decide to walk 5,000 miles from Texas to Washington, D.C. without saying much. It's not supposed to be a religious sect, but they've been hosted and greeted and helped along with every single religious sect and church that you could think of on their path and their way. But listening to them and actually being in their presence recently, like on their 100th day, they were on 100 Road in Chester. And me and my wife wound up with them walking right in front of us, right, saluting us. But the first thing that I got from watching it was the thing I least expected. I got a sense of peace because that's what they project and eject. They just glow, bro. And you look at them and you go, boy, these monks are something. And they are everything from I think they might have even an 80-year-old who was walking.
Yeah, I honestly think that was a testament to, like you said, commitment, but also them actually walking wasn't so much about a spiritual journey. It just shows people if you stick with something and you commit yourself to sacrifice, you in discipline, it can give a message. And I think that in today's world with the lack of sacrifice, it's something very therapeutic to see other people say, you know what, I'm going to do without in order to show you what you can do. Because it's a mental game. It's definitely a mental game. So, I mean, that I feel you on that. I got a chance to, experience them too. And I would say it was a very, I embraced the moment. I definitely embraced the moment.
It was something to embrace, especially a guy who comes from a revolutionary era.
So let's talk about that, right? Let's talk about this revolutionary era. So, Edalio, we understand you.
Can I answer this question about that?
Please do. I look. That's why I'm too. He's one. He's on
I
top.
don't want to reference it anymore unless it's necessary.
Mm-hmm.
We know the history of what was done to us as the Black people. We know that blood, people took it on after it was the waste and garbage that they left for you and I and our ancestors. Okay? Those guts, they clean that doo-doo out of and learn to fry and make a delicacy out of. That's how that blood made it to England. Because just like they took everything else from the people they stole, they would claim it. You know, if you ask them, they'll say, well, it was ours. In the blood.
It's like English tea, English breakfast. I crack up at English tea. And I'm like, ain't no damn tea in England. This is Indian.
Well, I mean, there was an old there was an old adage though. The sun never set on the British Empire.
Yeah,
That was the thing. It never did.
Go ahead.
It never did. That was the thing. It was a true saying. The sun never set on the British Empire because they had their feelers everywhere on this continent.
Yeah.
So when you have
It's
power,
funny how they claim stuff like British tea
yeah.
or English breakfast. I'm like, you don't make this. You just
Think about this. The
Take
fact
it
that we
remote.
all are speaking English now, legacy.
yeah, man. It's crazy.
I spoke Yoruba once.
You say you spoke Yoruba.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it. I mean, it's funny. We're going to talk about that a little later. It's going back to the question though of not so much assimilation, but how I know, because my father, one of his best friends was from Puerto Rico. I call him Uncle. Rest in peace. Tony Dominguez, Uncle Tony Dominguez. He was my dad's friend. He was from Dumfries, Virginia, up there in Northern Virginia. And he used to come to the house, and he was a very lively guy, very lively guy. My Uncle Tony was one of those people that when he came into a room, his personality just was big. And he was Afro-Latino as well. My question is to you though, like, was there anything that you identified different with? Because when people, like Latino people are just like any other people, right? There's many shades, the diversity of the group is as wide as the ocean. So I want to hear like exactly like the Afro-Latino experience. Like, was there anything different in your, I guess, growing up or anything that was different to you as you came to this country being Afro-Latino?
Yeah, once again, everything. The drastic, complete change. No one ever mistreated me. No one ever called me a nigger in Puerto Rico.
Mm-hmm.
But I get to this place called New York, which is supposed to be the Mecca of the world. And the first thing I embrace is the indifference of the treatment of my mother and father.
What do you mean by the indifference?
The indifference is the ill treatment towards them because they had an accent or had to struggle with the language.
Mm.
So as a child of those parents, the first thing you feel is a gut instinct that just comes inherently natural that you've never had to tap into or feel before, but you know that it's an injustice, that it's an assault on your parents for people to turn up and dismiss them and be indifferent and, oh, we gotta do this, and then maybe you get an interpreter. As a little kid, it shouldn't have been my struggle to think, man, how can I ever help my parents from being treated like this other than to become fluent in English?
Mm.
And that was something that from day one, with that indifference, as an innocent kid, a bystander, nobody's even aware is taking it in, commits to themselves. I said, I'll fix them. I'm going to speak for my parents. I'll teach Spanish. Didn't I do it? I did it watching television, watching baby kid cartoons, Casper the Friendly Ghost, because the school wasn't trying to teach me.
There was no ESL back then.
I was
right?
a 3rd and 4th grader in Puerto Rico. They have to put me in kindergarten.
Yeah, because back then there was no English as a second language, ESL classes or nothing.
Right.
You were where you were.
Yeah, it only took me a few months, and then I got shot straight up to 3rd grade. Now you got another culture thing and shot going, right? Took a kid who was already in the mindset of a conscious kid by hook or crook, right? Being displaced, taken from. And I'm going to tell you and share the truth with you how that came to happen. because my father would have stayed there. But I vowed I would help my parents. And that became actually my role as a young man with my parents and stuff.
Wow.
My mother died 3 years ago. She claims she still didn't speak no damn English if you let her. But she could speak English. But she can tell you. She never lost her accent. My father, on the other hand, he picked it back up because he had to come and go. Reason we had to leave Puerto Rico was because my father was in the life, whatever that is. I know he was a moonshiner. I know that men always have to, you talked about your Uncle Tony B and the spry personality. There's a reason for that. Caribbeans are energetic because the music is a happy place to be. People are happy and joyful. They dance, they sing, they play instruments, they eat, they cook. Everything's a party.
Yes.
Celebration.
You bring back memories. You bring back memories because everything
and
was.
You wind up in front of a dead tree going, what the hell just happened? And people looking at your family and acting indifferent, and we're kind of lost in a completely new, crazy environment. It was not difficult at all. The one gift about major big cities that I learned later through psychology and school and my work that is different than places even like big old Jim Crow, still, I don't know what, racist South. The city people are different. They didn't really care what you were. And in them days, they weren't a million Latinos or Afro-Latinos. Nobody was trying to identify as Afro, nothing. Until James Brown said, boy, say loud, black and proud. Not until Curtis Mayfield said, we a winner. Right? It isn't until about 10, 15 years ago that everybody started looking to connect themselves to some Caribbean root, some African root. Everybody suddenly wanted to be African, right? They'd run you out of the one real African village in Puerto Rico. It's called Loíza. It's where the bomba music comes from, right? And there's a family there called the Ayalas. They're in the history books for making those masks out of the coconut. They paint them and they do these things. And then they have these dances that they do in like folkloric attire of the time and with the long, big, wide skirts. But it was music to the ancestors. It was music to the ancestors. It's all rooted in African history, the island. But the island tended to have its own unspoken segregation and indifference.
What was that? What was that unspoken? Because if I could, before you get to that point, one thing I've noticed just by doing research, and I think Kofi, you have as well, is that Latin America is just like this country, but is a unique melting pot because of how the way it was formed. Like we were just talking about, the conquistadors. We were talking about that, how like in the 1500s, where the Spanish, they pillaged the Spaniards, they pillaged their way through, Central America, Latin America, and in tow, they brought, African slaves. Some of them escaped, and they became integrated with the actual natives there. So like the genesis of, Afro-Latinos is so unique because you had the African slaves that were here, or one way or another, that came with the Spanish, but one way or another, they found a way to get into the indigenous areas and they began to mix, and the Spaniards mixed with the locals. So it's this unique blend of people because of all the different influences and the time period, because this was before the British even thought about coming to the New World. This was in the 1500s. Remember we were talking about the Black conquistadors. So I would love to hear Like, what is that segregation? Because you guys are a very unique blend of genetic pools. I would love to hear that.
Yes, I just wanted to just take a little pause real quick just to thank our sponsors.
Yes.
Again, Modern Man Photography, Resist Booksellers. And yeah, if you're enjoying this conversation, give us a like, give us a follow. But please.
First of all, for that time, you were Puerto Rican. You weren't Latino. If you were from any other Latin American country, you came here and you could simulate being white, you would rather not tell people you were Latino?
So people actually hid it?
Yes.
Really?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Could you hide it?
But
could I hide it? Yeah, right after I pierced my ear and grew an afro.
But okay, so you mentioned hiding it here. Now, also know that like in many parts of Latin America, there was also the similar thing where there was an attempt to become white. There's like, I forget the term, but there's basically where people try to mix with lighter skinned people as much as they could to the point where they could be as close to white as possible, right? And I forget the term, but there's actually a term for it in certain parts of Latin America, right?
It's a belief and a practice in many places, because I think everyone dreams of coming to a place where you could do greater and better, right? So you kind of, it don't matter how you get there, by hook or crook, you know that somebody's already demonstrated to you that by going to the States, they enriched you back at home because they committedly sent resources home. Resources that would buy you probably 300% more real property or land or style of living than it would in the States. So people wanted to come to New York. It's a mecca, it's a boiling pot. But in them days, what you would be called in derogatory other than the treatment and attacks by whites, even then, you were a spick. You were a Puerto Rican and you were a spick. And brothers might have joined in that too, sometimes, depending on what part of town they were from. But where I came to live was not like that. We lived amongst the first biracial couples I ever saw, because I played with their children. Some of them were green-eyed and blonde and clear-skinned, but their daddy was black. Their mama was white with freckles. My other friends, they were Italian and Puerto Rican. They could outdance half of the world with salsa and hustle, but they looked like white Italians. Spoke fluent Italian, fluent English, and fluent Spanish.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Wow.
What was there a, so like, and was there kind of like a caste system, if you will, and we use that term,
You can use it.
you know,
It's
because
fair.
I know
There is.
It's like a hierarchy.
a hierarchy, right, you know.
So remember I spoke about the hustle and us always being in our character and personality. It's for a reason. We're bred like that, right? It's kind of sort of contributes and encourages you to be all that you can be, but what they're trying to push on you is that old folkloric Latinos, not Latinos, Puerto Ricans, Afro-Caribbeans, which I identify as Afro-Caribbean, and you will ask me what island, and I'll tell you a Taino from Puerto Rico. Right? People would do anything to assimilate, and I grew up watching it. So once somebody did learn to speak English, they hurried up and got rid of the accent, right? My father would have rather taken on an Asian, like the Chinese Puerto Rican or Chinese Cuban restaurant we would go to. They were Asian, but they spoke Cuban and Spanish, right? But my father would rather sound like a Chinaman speaking English and Spanish to you than to be thought of as trying to assimilate a sound difference. You understand? So the struggles are different and weird psychologically. They mess people up throughout, right? People who knew that if they could curl up their kinky hair but were light-skinned enough to go to Brooklyn where the Jewish factories are, that they could get a job like they were Jewish. Now they're assimilating the Jews, right? Because they'll hire them because he behaving, he practicing, he learning how to assimilate to his benefit. What? Better pay? To get a state job?
Well, what, if I could ask, what was so I know like in the African American community, you know, assimilation could be in the sense of like social status to kind of go up the social hierarchy, right?
Mm-hmm.
I guess what was the motivation for, you know, the Afro-Latinos or, you know, or the people you were around? Was it purely to just assimilate? Or, I mean, what was the motivation behind it?
A better life, a better future for children, for the next generation. The dream of being able to go back and reacquire new property. You understand?
You understand?
Go back and get your piece of the rock again. Because that was always my mother's dream to her dying bed. To one day go back. She died with owning a property in Puerto Rico we didn't know about.
Wow. Because I guess it's hard for people like you and I and Kofi to truly assimilate or try to be cast in a different way, because I mean, just look at us. Like, I don't think he could.
I can't pass.
Yeah,
I'm not passing.
Yeah, none of us could pass, right? But I think in Latina culture, you do get some people who could be casted in a different way.
Absolutely.
And I've always been interested about that. Did you have any friends or any close people?
Absolutely. All my friends was all mixed up.
Really?
Some of my brothers, just like him, except he Panamanian, you Cuban. You understand?
Yeah.
Now you speak in perfect English. You living right there on 110th and Atlantic with your other African American brothers. You out there in the struggle with them.
Mm-hmm.
But that's their protection. That they'll try not to speak Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
You see? Nobody wanted to be Spanish.
Wow. Yeah.
And here's another reason. We were only fixing Puerto Ricans. I don't give a doggone if you wore a Mexican hat. There was no even such thing as a Mexican. Now everybody's a Mexican, right? Because that's what they call you to degrade you. No matter where from the island you are.
That is ridiculous. That's true.
And then you know what hurts me the most? A brother will drive right by Lowe's and by Home Depot and say, look at them damn Mexican niggas. And I say, brother, you need a trip to New York or the Caribbean so bad.
Yeah, but you know what? Like, even though your experience is different, I identify with it personally because it's kind of like I've told a couple times on this podcast. Like when I came to America, like I kind of rushed to assimilate myself because for me it wasn't about black or whatever. It was about trying to sound American and trying to blend in. I was a child. I felt that pressure to assimilate and to sound American. And in hindsight, I regret that. I wish somebody had told me like, no, like fight that. You'll be all right. But there's pressure. There's pressure to assimilate. So for you, it was language, but for me, it was accent, because. Mm-hmm. If you were for me, I was called African.
It was more than language for you or accent. It's the same thing. It's what it is. It's you're a black man, and I don't care what you assimilate. I don't care whose school you go to. In the end, bro, they say 1/5, right?
Yeah, but I mean, I grew up in a black neighborhood though. You know, so it was mostly black Americans that were pressuring me or teasing kids. Most, you know, we were all kids.
Was it mixed with islanders like yourself?
I didn't go to school with any others. I went to school, ironically enough, so my best friends were African and Dominican. So funny enough.
Right.
But we didn't have a choice, so we stuck together.
Haiti.
I guess the thing is that
We share that as islanders.
yeah, and I mean it's all different stops of the boat. I want to segue, if I could, Kofi.
Mhm.
You mentioned 10, 15 years ago, there has been, I guess, this great awakening to be identified as Afro-Caribbean or Afro-Latino. Can you talk about the transition from what you saw during your majority of your life? What has been your feelings or your sentiment towards this awakening or this new acknowledgement of being Afro-Latino, that subgroup is being really acknowledged?
I think it's people coming to see the light. I think that they're evolved and willing to look at what they can no longer turn a blind eye to. If you know that you are the original man, that you are closer to the beginning of civilization than anybody else on this planet, you start embracing that. Right? You start looking at that.
What was that great awakening? Like, what was the catalyst for it? You said 10, 15 years ago, it was like that term really became something that was of the public conscience. What was that
They
catalyst?
saw islanders standing up and fighting and speaking out and saying, no, we're not kowtowing no more, and fighting like they have done their whole lives. Everything's a struggle. But for some reason, everything winds up being still stolen and controlled by a minority. It's so ingrained in the fabric of the institutions that manage and control our lives and our world that you'll never see any real black collegiate, doesn't matter what you was or are. For me, I embrace and love the fact that people are embracing their African ancestry. The reason being, we know you black, you Latino, right? Stop lying, right? We seen your mother. But people can be black Dominicans, and because their birth certificate says they're white, you'll hear them talk about black people.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there going,
Oh,
you blacker than them people down there.
I'm black and Dominican. Yeah, I've heard that many times.
And you're damn sure country. But I watched all my friends, everybody who used to come to New York and to any other major city, Chicago, etc., because I have family there too, always, it was easier for them to assimilate because there were Latinos there and blacks there already. People to embrace you and not treat you indifferent. They were fluent, they could do whatever. But a lot of it had to do with like still lying to yourself, having to walk a certain way, having to look different if you had to go below 96th Street in Manhattan.
You know what's, Edalio, the thing I think is unique to everybody in the diaspora, whether you're from the Caribbean, whether you're from the continent, or whether you're from Latin America, is you have to walk a fine line not to forget your roots, but at the same time, you're in a place that is just overstimulation. Because, you know, like you said, you came from Puerto Rico to New York City, you know. Kofi went to DC, you know. Even though
It's another major city.
another major city. You know, my father came to Philadelphia when he first came to
That's my wife from Philly.
Hey, shout out to the Eagles, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. hey, but we won't leave that alone. But he came to Philadelphia from Ghana, and he talked the same. It's the same sentiment I'm hearing from my elders. It's like they had to walk that fine line of trying to keep their cultural identity, but at the same time, they had to assimilate to the groups that were there at their work job, like they're at their work, at their apartments where they lived at, the grocery stores, all those type of places. Like they had to assimilate some type of way to the culture that was around them. I mean, I just found it unique among wherever you're from in the diaspora. It always goes back to, you know, hey, you are who you are, but you also have to respect the people that's here, that's always have laid a path for us, you know, which I guess what do people call themselves in the FBA? I don't want to get into that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that, but
Not talking about them.
okay. It's the FBI. So I'm not getting into that.
No, I mean, to your point though, I think that's why, not to harp on this Bad Bunny, you know, Super Bowl halftime show too much, but I feel like it was important. I feel like it wasn't just like symbolic. I think it was important. Like you can look on social media and it's showing like the families. I felt a sense of pride when he called out Guyana. I was like, oh, we getting a shout out. It's a Super Bowl. You know, there's so many. I saw like this Ecuadorian family like jumping up and down here in their country. You know, it's like these. You know, we're told to be invisible. It's like you can be here, but you can't talk your language. You can be here, but you can't. You have to do it on our terms. You can't be fully yourself. You know, so him doing that entire halftime show in Spanish and just putting his whole culture on display was meaningful because it was like, no, I am who I am. I'm proud of who I am. And we are, you know, proud of who we are. You know, it's like he brought out all the flags and it's like we're part of the fabric of this country just like everybody else. And we don't have to apologize. We don't have to assimilate, you know, like, you know what I'm saying? And so, I mean, I thought that was important, and I really identify with a lot of the things that you've been saying, you know, because of that. Let me ask you this: can we talk about music a little bit? Because
sure.
you teach music; it's a big part of your life. What would you say gets transferred, or you can learn from music that you just can't teach from books?
Music, you can deliver all kinds of stuff with music. Music is taught in Africa in the village. It was always taught to drummers by the griot in the village singing it. Bam tam piri, bam tam piri. Better play it, because there's gonna be drummers and there's gonna be drum makers and there's gonna be griots and village healer and the historian. So they took our language too. But now they demand that you are an American because you did a halftime in Spanish that embraced the majority of the Latin American countries and world at a time when, man, if they didn't need a Band-Aid and a patch up to feel good for something. That's why it was the Bad Bunny. Let me tell you something. When he brought Lady Gaga out there, you got people all over the world upset, the nonsense, looking for reasons. Puerto Ricans, bold-faced, saying it. All the women he could have bought out there, he bought some Lady Gaga. I think it was genius, because he was also with Lady Gaga at the Grammys. They're friends.
Yeah.
The message was wonderful to bring it full circle. He wanted English music. She sang in English to Latin rhythm.
Yeah.
Ricky Martin. That's a friendly approach, because there was a time he had actually mistakenly said something that was anti-alternative living or gay.
Yeah. Ricky's a wild boy. Ricky's a wild boy. That's all I'm gonna say. Shout out to Ricky. He's
And
a
the
wild
other
boy.
real reason that he had Ricky Martin there was political, because Ricky Martin as a child, he had to learn English because
Menudo, right?
right,
Yeah,
they
Menudo.
could not sing in Spanish.
Yeah.
And he made history because he's the first person ever allowed to do a full presentation in America in Spanish.
And he was part of that Latin explosion in the late 90s, where Latin music became, or Latin pop music became, it had this huge wave. I think we all remember that. You know, where Carlos Santana had
That's
his
right.
album Supernatural, and
That's right.
Jennifer Lopez had her resurgence and all of that. So he was a part of that wave. So
Santana's Friends, Mauro,
it was that. I remember that.
Woodstock.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes, I remember
That
that.
brought them brothers together, and them drummers and them Latinos together, baby. We just sing-a-linging.
Well, I was going to ask, how do you feel about the future of America? I know it's probably hard to say, but are you optimistic or pessimistic or about the future of America, especially when it comes to the integration of Latin culture?
I just heard a meme on the way here or something on the radio, Pacifica, about people who 4 years ago started just leaving on their own. 4 years ago, right? And many people who just want to spare their babies and their children from it and are leaving. They're not even going to homes. They're just going anywhere where they know people aren't living like they are in America. How do I feel about the future? Listen, I gotta go with the prayer that the monks were talking about. Tell yourself, every day is going to be your peaceful day. Because if you don't give it to yourself, you're never going to get it. You used a term before, but they have a more modern term for it, and it's called mindfulness. Right? Instead of discipline, but nobody wants to be disciplined.
No, that's a bad word.
Mindfulness means the same thing, right? But to try to do one thing at a time, because the mess of it all has destroyed this country. The damage is so deep that we slept for 3 generations on over 250 million children who were being raised to believe that them people that you're looking at down there and you keep hearing about, them niggers, they're taking everything that you're supposed to have. And now they're recruited, now they're in all the military boot camps, sitting up there in formation, saying, I don't care if you don't like it. I'm a Trumper. So my children are in trouble. My grandchildren are in trouble. My heart is ruined as a man who came up during the civil rights movement to have to run around and watch my brothers murdered in the street for sport.
Wow.
It'll take 3-4 generations before we have peace and camaraderie here again. I don't care how many people marry, white, black, how many mixed children you have. What does it matter if you're animalizing them and telling people that they're creatures to be stomped on? So you've got the Tutsis and the Hutus in Africa, the roaches. When you put an ex-president and his wife in a gorilla suit and then complain about some man who did a halftime show, he wants an inquiry because of the provocative dancing. So I'm gonna leave it there. Mindfulness. See why I need mindfulness.
You need to take that mic out. Just go ahead, drop that mic. Nah, don't do that. That's not expensive.
No, brother, I want to thank you all.
Brother Edalio, all I gotta say is we gotta have you back.
Yes. We gotta have you back.
We're gonna have you once a quarter. We just gonna.
You might gotta give me your own section Yeah, we might gotta give you your own section.
I'll be there to do the drumming for you.
Hey.
Break me.
Break 'em on.
But brother, we're gonna wrap this up. Definitely
It went
appreciate
quick, guys. I
know,
thank
this-
you.
this
Y'all great.
conversation.
I'm glad what you're doing.
Yeah, so definitely appreciate you taking the time out to be with us today. To all of our viewers, if you enjoyed this episode, please give us a like, subscribe. We're going to try our best to bring more content like this. Thank you to our sponsors, Resist Booksellers and Modern Man Photography.
Buy some books.
Buy some books. Oh, the book of the day. The book of the day. I almost forgot.
Buy some books.
The book of the day.
Don't go to Amazon. Come to Resist.
Is an African American and Latinx history of the United States by Paul Ortiz. And you can get that book right here at Resist Booksellers.
Yeah, I know Paul.
Yeah?
No, I don't. I just want to say that. Yeah. Love you guys. Y'all take care. Peace.